きな食べ物は何ですか？
焼肉。和牛は大好きです。だから焼肉としゃぶしゃぶ本当に大好きです。
I love it too.
え
You know, in Japan,
Yeah, I
so
know.
many people has like a kind of stigma for tattoo
Yeah.
because of Yakuza culture. Do you think if you have a tattoo, you can't go to onsen or?
So I can't speak for me because I have no tattoos, but I have many friends that or people I met with tattoos.
Hi, good day guys. Welcome back to my channel today. I'm going to ask foreign people about different culture between Japan and their country. On my channel, I'm sharing their perspective or opinion from people who are traveling Japan or living in Japan. So if you are interested about Japan, you can comment on my video or you can subscribe my channel. So let's get started. Thank you for coming today. Where are you from?
I'm from France.
Okay. Do you traveling here or do you live in Japan?
No, I'm traveling about a month now. It's been a month I'm in Japan. I've been in Japan before. About 6 months now altogether, and absolutely love Japan. But traveling.
So what brought you to come to Japan? It must be super far away from France.
So the first time actually I was doing like a multi-destination trip.
Okay.
So with my ex-girlfriend we traveled in different countries, and Japan was one of these countries. And I always was attracted by Japan, the culture, the architecture also especially. And because I love hiking and I knew that Japan is all about volcanoes and mountains. So this is what really brought me to Japan first. The idea I had of it, like a very safe country, very nice people, and the culture itself, the philosophy and poetry that I knew about Japan at that time.
You mentioned now that Japan is too safe. Like, is it different
really
between France and Japan and other country?
Big difference, yeah. I think Japan is really safe for different reasons. Like, I think definitely culturally, most of the Japanese people are educated. I think I've read somewhere that 97% of Japanese people can read and write. And apparently, it's supposed to be like a sign, like when not enough people, like in a country, let's say, are able to write and speak the language. Apparently, they tend more to be. There is more violence in the country, basically. So it might be one reason, but I think it's also very culturally. Like Japan is really. Most of the people I've seen, you feel like there is no aggressivity.
Okay.
Not like I've traveled in many Latin countries, France and Spain and North Africa and this country, and you can feel like it's a bit more heated. Let's say, people can get angry very fast.
Yeah.
And here I never
More
felt
aggressive.
it. Never felt it.
Okay.
Alcohol, sometimes alcohol helps a bit, but
Okay.
no, I've never felt it in Japan.
Wow. I have some foreign friends who lives in Japan. They told me they can't left some like bag or like wallet on a table.
France is bad about that because even people who never were not thieves, like they didn't plan to rob you or anything, but they are what you could call opportunistic. Say you just leave your bag like right now, like you left on the floor, and let's say you go to piss or bath, someone will grab it and just go, and just because they saw it and it's easy to do. And so it's a bit sad, like it happens a lot.
Like even if
In
just
parks.
5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. It's really a thing, like with bikes. Like my city where I live, Strasbourg in France, is very famous. It's like the capital city of bike robbing, like people stealing bikes. Yeah, it's a big thing. So of course there are many bikes in my city. The more there are, probably the more robberies there are. No, it's pretty bad. Like that's why for me it's so enjoyable to be in Japan. I never think about this. I can, leave my bag, leave my bike, leave even my phone, in a hotel or something. I know no one will touch it, and it's really something you can appreciate.
You've been in Japan for like a few times, right? So did you find any cultural differences like between Japan and your country? Anything like environment, people?
There are many differences. This is exactly what I was looking for in Japan. Like, nowadays I feel like many countries, started to be a bit similar. Kind of more homogeneous, and because Japan was closed for a long time, not really open to the world.
Right.
That's why
around the country.
Exactly, and the very reason why not many Japanese people speak English is because they were closed. But what I love about it is they kept their culture very strong. So this is very different. So the architecture is different. What is probably the biggest cultural shock is probably the behavior of people, like social rules. So for example, it's a lot about respect all the time, and it's a lot about keeping distance. You do not invade like space of people. Latin countries, like it's a lot of touching. It's a lot of like hugging and stuff. Exactly, and even couples. Couples we kiss in public all the time. It's very rare in Japan to see like couples kissing. Even holding hand is. Young people now you see it a bit, but it's not something you see all the time. This is probably the biggest shock, I would say.
Okay.
And then
Yeah, I've heard of this. Like when you date with someone in your country, they don't really care to kissing or holding hands or hug
No,
in a
no,
public.
it's-
But in Japan,
Yeah,
no
yeah.
one do this in public.
especially in Latin countries like Spain, Italy, like it's just a lot about like North Africa. It's a lot about touching.
Right,
It's a lot about
right.
even friends together. You know, like they touch all the time. They hug.
True.
It's really yeah.
Okay, so I think Japanese culture is definitely relate that cross country because Ireland. Do you think Japan has to more accept more immigration from other country? Like, do you think Japan has to needs to more immigration?
Well, personally, I would say no. My reason for
Me neither,
to
by
say
the way.
that, well, my reason to say that is I love traveling. And what I like when I go to a different country is to notice the differences and to
Yeah.
experience the differences. So if we all become the same because of immigration and we all have the same things and the same streets and you know in Europe now you can go in every capital cities and you will always see like you go to the main street and you have like H&M and Chanel and Gucci
Yeah,
and it seems to be
everywhere.
exactly the same.
Yeah.
And this is what I love in very different countries. You experience something different, so different language, different people, different culture, physically different. And I love it. This is what I like. So I'm from a country where we had a lot of immigration. Like everything, there are good sides and bad sides. But I think what's a bit sad is when you lose your identity, let's say. You know, like when you lose what makes your culture.
Yeah.
And this is what I love about Japan.
I'm also like thinking the same way. I think if we accept more foreign people immigration, I think we can't keep Japanese culture like this. There's also some pros. You know, Japanese English education is pretty bad. So if we have more foreign people, there has so many opportunity to speak with English people more. So because so many Japanese people don't speak English still in 2023.
Yeah.
So this is the biggest problem.
But I've heard once from a Japanese English teacher
Yeah.
in Japan, and he told me that, and I could relate, like I could understand what he said. He said, the reason why teaching of English in Japan is so bad and different depending where you are, like you have good schools, I guess, and you have very, very bad schools teaching English. And he said it's because the government doesn't really want to harmonize it because English, which is quite simple, will take over Japanese and that the young people will use more and more English
Yeah.
because so much of the culture is in the Japanese language will get lost a bit,
Okay.
like being, you know, like eaten by English. A part of the Japanese culture would be pushed away.
We have a like English class from primary school to until like high school, university. All class is only like writing and listening for like exam for like enter university or something. We never had a speaking opportunity in the
Right,
class,
okay.
so I think this is the biggest problem that Japanese people don't speak English. So yeah, Japanese English education has to focus for speaking, I think.
But it's always hard because like the fact that let's say every Japanese people start to speak English, they will probably start to move outside of Japan more,
True.
and there will be more exchanges, like because this is how it is. Like many Japanese go abroad, like they will. Japan might need people to come in to
Yeah.
compensate in some way, and after a while, maybe Japanese culture will just crumble a bit because this is what happened to so many countries. It's hard to tell, like. But I
Right.
can understand why it would be good also for Japanese people to. I would love to be able to
Right.
exchange more because my Japanese is basic, let's say. So it would be good, definitely for some reasons.
Is it hard to communicate with Japanese people when you go to a restaurant or when you go to supermarket, or do you speak Japanese?
So I learned Japanese by myself. I would say it took me 1.5 months to be able to have small talk. It's harder for me to understand than to speak. I can say many things, but once of the time I don't understand when people talk to me.
Because of their accent or if they speak so fast?
I think they speak fast, but I think it's also because I learned by myself. But now I would say that my Japanese is good enough that I can really ask pretty much anything I need to a store restaurant. I never struggle. So sometimes because of it, if I do not have pictures and there are no translation, I have to ask like, is it meat? Is it fish? Is it because I don't know what's written
Right.
either or not. So this is the part where I struggle the most. Going to a restaurant where the menu is not translated at all, not
Okay.
even in Romaji, for example, because Romaji I could work my way around.
Especially if you go to rural area or like countryside.
Yeah. To me, it's part of the travel. This is what I like. Like
Nice.
this is an adventure. So okay, well, if I have to speak with my hands, if I have to, you know, like imitate a fish to explain or whatever. Never I felt like, oh, it's not normal. Like they should have English.
Yeah.
I never felt like this.
Okay.
For me, I come to Japan. I have to adapt. I have to find my way around. So I never had an issue with it at all. Like. If I have to struggle, I struggle. If I have to try harder, I try harder. You know, it's.
That's so cool. Like you are trying to adjust the local
Exactly,
culture,
yeah.
local people.
I don't want to be like entitled. Yeah, I want a waiter that speaks my language. Or no.
Okay.
I come to Japan. I adapt. I play by the rules.
Wow, that's so cool. So, can I ask something in Japanese?
Sure, let's try.
Okay. 好きな食べ物は何ですか？
焼肉、和牛は大好きです。焼肉としゃぶしゃぶ、本当に大好きです。
I love it too.
ラーメンはいろいろありますね。たくさん。
醤油ラーメンとか塩ラーメン、
はい
豚骨ラーメン。ラーメンはフランスにはありますか？あんまりない。
あまりない悪いです。
フランスで食べたことありますか？ラーメン。フランス。
はい。と
美味しい。
ラーメンと寿司ちょっと違う、テイストフレッシュじゃない、とても違う。
寿司は全然フレッシュじゃない。硬い。でもフランスは海があるから魚取れるからフレッシュじゃないの。
僕の町は海はとっても遠いです。だから
日本で一番好きな場所はどこですか
？5年前に北海道に行きました。北海道本当に楽しかった。
何しましたか？北海道。
ハイキング、旭岳トップまで、と知床に行きました。本当に熊ちょっと怖かった。
熊見ました？
熊
見た。
はい。けど怖かった熊を。
熊近かったですか？
いえ多分。
Did you fight?
Nah, you can't fight brown bears. It's too scary, too big. ラノに行きました。ラベンダーフィールズ。本当に綺麗です。
I've been there too.
別府温泉。
いいね。
本当に楽しかった。
Do you have a tattoo, if I may ask? So, in Japan, so many people has like a kind of stigma for tattoo because of Yakuza culture. Do you think if you have a tattoo, you can't go to onsen or?
So I can't speak for me because I have no tattoos, but I have many friends or people I met with tattoos could go to onsen in Japan. Who could go to onsens or sentos with no problem. I believe that Japanese sentos and onsen make a bit the difference between foreigners having tattoos and Japanese people having tattoos.
Yeah, it's different.
So probably Japanese people having tattoos, it's a bit like a taboo still. But foreigners now, I think most of the Japanese people know that it has no meaning behind it. It's not a PR thing, or it's not like a... And it's huge. In my country, for example, I think they say that almost 70% or 75% of the people have a tattoo, even a small one or something.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of people now.
People have not related to Yakuza things.
I have no tattoos, but I have a big beard, for example. So
cool.
It's not very common. It's not very common in Japan, obviously.
Yeah.
I always had good interactions, but onsens, like I've been to many onsens where I was the only foreigner. So of course, like men are a bit staring at me, but curiosity. I never felt bad about it. Again, because I accept, like I know that I'm the only foreigner here. I'm different, it's normal. So I don't mind people looking at me like that.
I think they are really curious for people who looks very different in Japan. Yeah. It doesn't mean they are like racist or like,
Not at all. Like I never felt like it.
No.
And last year I lived in Mexico and I've been to places where they never see European like me.
Okay.
And everyone is looking at me, everyone wants to talk to me, and so as long as you go in a country where they don't see... My brother-in-law is black.
Okay.
And he came to work to Japan in Utsunomiya. So he's an engineer, He's engineer and worked for Honda in Utsunomiya. And he was probably the only black guy. So he told me he had no problem with it, and he didn't feel any racism or something. But of course it's very different. So people are a bit curious, like you look very different.
That's why people are looking at
it's
them.
Normal, like I don't mind.
Okay. So the last question, would you like to live in Japan one day or not?
Actually, I thought about it for a long time because I really fit in Japan. Like I love Japanese culture because I love rigor, rigorous country with rules, and it's very pragmatic and logical. So I really felt like I could live in Japan. And there is a program, maybe you've heard about it, called JET. Have you heard about JET? Yeah, so I was thinking about using it, working. I love sport, obviously, and so you can either be, assistant teacher, or you can help also organize international events that take place in Japan. So not long ago there was a Rugby World Cup in Japan, and I'm a rugby player. So, so I was like, I would have loved to, do JET in such a thing. But life, I kept traveling in different countries, and last year because of COVID, I couldn't also come back to Japan when I wanted to. So then it changed a bit. But I think I could have tried definitely to live in Japan.
Okay.
But everyone that I know who are living in Japan told me that traveling in Japan and living in Japan is very different.
Right.
Like working in Japan can be hard depending on what you do.
Right. Yeah, Japanese working culture is really crazy.
Yeah,
Lot of my friends working a lot, like even until last train, like 11 p.m. It's really crazy, and we can't get like a long holiday.
Yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
Maximum is 1 week, I think.
Feeling was
Yeah.
though that it really depends on the work. Like office work, I think is a nightmare.
Yeah.
Because you work too hard
Yeah.
and you are really pressured. But when I went to countryside, like people working in cafes, and they were much more relaxed. Like
more chill.
yeah, like cafes and restaurants or
Yeah.
music or like
I love it.
whatever, maybe internet culture too, like because now it's developing a lot.
Yeah.
Like web designer, whatever. It was a bit different. So I really believe it depends what job you have, probably.
Yeah, and it maybe depends on place. Like Tokyo is crazy.
Sure.
Every morning is so crowded in a train,
Oh, it is,
and yeah, walking until like really late night. So
Last train being
yeah,
pushed,
shouldn't.
being pushed in,
Yeah.
in the last metro. Yeah.
Yeah, we say it's main densha, like
Oh, okay.
yeah, it's crowd train. Okay, so thank you for your experience in Japan. It was very interesting. So I hope you are enjoying your rest of the day in Japan.
Thank you so
so much today.
Thank you.
Merci beaucoup.
Merci beaucoup.
Thanks for watching my video. How was it? It was super interesting to hear his perspective and opinion about Japan. And especially I really like he's trying to speak Japanese with local people because Japanese people don't speak English very much in general. And he's trying to speak Japanese because he's visiting in Japan. Makes me to think like when I visiting other country, I have to learn their local language. I think it's better to speak with local people and get along each other. This is really good perspective, I think. If you like this video, I'm very appreciate you can subscribe my channel. And if you want to know something about Japan, you can always comment on my video and I can consider to make these topics for next video. So hopefully see you soon for next video. Ciao.